Greetings, fellow book lovers. We are back for episode number 3 of Books and Basketball, and I am honored and very excited for our guest today, Jake from the channel, Jake Bishop. Do you want to introduce yourself, Jake?
Hello, I'm Jake. I have an incredibly creative channel name where, get this, I took my first name and my last name and I put them next to each other. It's trademarked. If anyone else did that, please email me because they do owe me royalties. I generally talk about books. I watch basketball, but have not actually talked about it on here. So for some of you are going to find out that I'm a basketball nerd once I start referencing random things. So yeah, it's mostly sci-fi and fantasy books, probably like these ones, maybe. And yeah, I hope Chad and the other three other people, I don't know how many people are watching this, but I'm assuming Chad is here because he also likes books and watches basketball and is on every live stream that I've ever been on. So yeah,
We were just talking about it. Shad is everywhere at all times.
Are you sure there's not 4 of you?
Shad watches all the sporting events. He's reading or has read all the books, and he's always got amazing input on everything, and I love it.
No, he is sadly cheering for the Spurs, who have won 4 games this year. But
if
they've got Wemby though, so
if they realize that all they need to do is feed the ball to their 7'4" point guard,
if they're wait, if they're wait, we've got a guy who's 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan, and he's directly under the basket. Should we pass it to him? No, we should take a contested mid-range jumper. Got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let him try to get the rebound.
Yeah.
Hello, Rozier. It is sad, but they'll figure it out. They got Popovich. He's got to talk some sense into these young
They'll draft a point guard next year, or they'll trade for someone who can pass.
I think Keldon Johnson needs to be humbled a little bit. He thinks very highly of himself after being on the Olympic team, and I don't know if he's that guy.
Wemby, though, defensively is already terrifying.
Oh my gosh, him and Chet, incredible.
Yeah, so in the game, I watched mostly Nuggets games and then some other games. We'll get to that. But in the Spurs game, Wemby had 6 steals, and then in one of the OKC games, he had 9 blocks.
I know, and these dudes aren't even strong yet. So
yeah,
I don't know.
The Spurs.
For those of you that are here, we've kind of already started the pregame. This is going to be Jake and I kind of catching up and getting things going. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the format, there will be a series of general questions, and the first answer will be book related, and the second answer will be basketball related. So we'll have plenty for those of you that love books or basketball or both, like in the case of Jake and I. And we'll start off the pregame with Jake. What are you currently reading at the moment?
So I'm reading 2 things. I just started both of them. One last night, technically after midnight, one this morning. On my Kobo that I got for Christmas, I've started A Betrayal in Winter by Daniel Abraham. I read A Shadow in Summer, which is the Long Price Quartet, a long time ago. And many people have threatened my life for not continuing. So to avoid murder, I have started Betrayal in Winter, and apparently I'm 12% into it. And then also, I randomly started The Silmarillion, which I've been meaning to read for ever. And I was I'll read a chapter a day. I was okay, I've got a thing I'm reading digitally. It's weird to not be reading a physical book. I know. I'll do The Silmarillion. So that is what I'm reading right now. How about you?
I am currently in the middle of Memories of Ice, so the 3rd Malazan book. I just finished a day or so ago, Dragon Haven, sorry, the 2nd book in the Rain Wilds Chronicles. So I'm working my way through that, and that's about it right now. I usually do 1 audio and 1 physical book at a time for the most part. But I am now doing a thing with my sister where we are going to just try to keep a Stephen King book going in the background so we can have a way to, an excuse to communicate more frequently. So I am reading The Dark Half with her slowly, but we are making our way through that. So That's what
That,
I'm
by the way,
currently.
one of the people in chat, the Rogue, that's one of the people who caused me to feel like my life was threatened if I didn't read A Betrayal in Winter soon. He insisted that no violence would happen, but I'm like, I mean, he's called the Rogue, so we might be sneaky.
Rogue is sneaky, and
Yeah.
Rogue is a phenomenal supporter of my channel and seems to be for a lot of my friends as well. So I'm very happy to see you here, Rogue, and Happy New Year to you as well.
It's not New
I'm
Year
not sure
to
how many
me.
people we're gonna have
Yeah.
on
Probably
here
not that
because
many.
it's New Year's Eve, but maybe people will watch the rerun. I'm not sure.
Whatever. It's introverts. It's readers. We'll be okay.
So
the
you
first.
kind of touched on this. Have you been watching the NBA this year?
Yeah, quite a lot. I watching the NBA a lot. Like I used to kind of be like, vaguely, very vaguely aware. I started watching it a lot more in 2022, randomly. I don't know why, and I've watched it very closely the last 2 years. I don't know. So yeah, this year very closely.
Nice. And for those that don't know, Jake is a Nuggets fan, correct?
I am. Let's go. We were
Always have been.
So kind of started in 2022. So my secret power is I hop on bandwagons right before they become bandwagons. So people were like, oh, 2023, they're the 1 seed. They're winning in the playoffs. Let's hop on the Nuggets bandwagon. Meanwhile, I'm like, hey, they're like the 6th seed, but they're missing 2 good players. And like that Warriors series, those games were low-key close. And also, I really like my other sport that I watch is hockey. I'm Canadian. I've been watching hockey for a lot longer. And the team that I grew up watching was like the Sedin twins and like super like amazing passing. For every sport, I'm like, if I see good passes, I'm like, ooh, good passes. So that was one of the reasons. I didn't at some point decide that I was a Nuggets fan. I just started watching basketball and I was like, every time a Nuggets game was on, I was like, oh, I'm definitely cheering for the Nuggets. And I was like, okay, I guess we're cheering for the Nuggets. And then they were good. So also, I think it's funny. The Canucks, I live in Vancouver, are one of, if not the oldest hockey franchise that has not won the Stanley Cup. So, of course, I started cheering for the Nuggets, who were, I believe, the oldest NBA franchise who had not won a championship. And then they immediately won a championship. So I didn't have to wait for as long as I have for Vancouver. So that's nice.
That was exciting. And the Nuggets are, again, a formidable foe for the Western Conference teams that have to face them. And they were, like Sean was kind of referencing, since the bubble season, they've been so close to being on the brink with this Jokic iteration and Jamal Murray iteration of the team. And it was nice to finally see them. Like, they have so many likable guys on that team, and they just play. I mean, they're not the most exciting team in the league, but they just play good fundamental basketball, like on both sides of the floor. And it's cool to see that finally pay off, where it wasn't just a super team that was bought by some major city in California that won on, strict talent, basically.
Yeah, I do find it funny when like Nuggets fans are like, see, this is how you build a team. And it's like, yeah, step 1, pick a multiple time MVP, 41st overall. Like, all right, that's probably not viable. But yeah, Jamal Murray also is Canadian, and is a super, super entertaining player. He's one of the people who you just trust in the clutch. Like, it's kind of like, we got playoff Murray. Playoff Murray is a thing. And then he just chills in the regular season. It was really funny coming into the season because all the Nuggets fans are like, Jamal Murray's got to make an all-star team. And for the interviews, like before the season, it's like, are you going to try and like put up numbers you did in the playoffs like the entire season? And he was kind of like, yeah, I mean, when it gets to the playoffs, I'll play how I have to. And it's like, all right, he's chilling. But then the playoffs will come and suddenly he'll average like 27, 6 and 6.
He emerges.
Yeah.
When it matters.
Yeah.
We have Jared here from the Fantasy Thinker, who is unfortunately a Celtics fan, but he is a big Celtics fan, and I respect anyone that follows basketball, although it is an Eastern Conference. I can't even say rival. The Bulls aren't good enough to have any rivals right now, unfortunately, but the Celtics are really scary this year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that starting 5 is legit, like, unfair.
Derek White, man, is like crazy.
Like,
I didn't know he
who's
was
their
that good.
fifth best player right now? Like, if you had to pick, it's wild. Like,
I don't even know.
it might be Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown
Yeah.
might be their fifth best player. He made an All NBA team last year.
He's
What
the
is
highest
that?
paid player in the league now.
I think he's one of the
I
people
think.
on the Supermax. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
more than Giannis or Jokic, but like as much. He's
Yeah.
apparently, which is dubious. But yeah, that starting five is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, they win games, a lot of them. And that's unfortunate.
I was kind of like I thought they were the toughest matchup for the Nuggets going into the playoffs last year. So when the Heat went up 3-0, and I was like, I mean, the Heat kind of win when they shouldn't, but I was kind of like, they beat teams that are good, that they were a good matchup against. I was pretty confident. So this is the problem the Heat have with the Nuggets. Bam Adebayo is really, really good at defending people. Like, he can defend almost everyone in the league. There's like two people in the league who you don't want Bam to defend, and one of them is Jokic.
Yeah.
Everyone else,
I
like
agree.
point guard, center, whatever. Like Bam, almost like a perfect Giannis defender. Like,
Yeah.
um,
He's athletic enough to defend almost
yeah.
any center or power forward in the league.
And I mean, he's super switchable too. Like, he can guard guards. Like, he's
Yeah.
probably better at guarding Jamal Murray than he is at guarding Jokic as the center.
Yeah.
And yeah, the best way to defend the Nuggets is to have like one strong power forward type person who you can throw on Jokic, and then have like a really good help defender to roam in the paint. It's what the Lakers did. It's what the Timberwolves have this year, and what they had last year.
Yeah.
Which I think, and then it's also the Celtics had the Al Horford, Robert Williams, which was also
Porzingis is a really good defender too. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see if they get matched up again somehow.
So yeah, it's a pretty tough matchup. Like, I'd way rather. The Bucks are different this year, but last year, like going into the playoffs, I would have way rather played the Bucks than the Nuggets in the finals. Assuming the Nuggets make the final, I was feeling pretty good going into those playoffs. Like, the Nuggets had lost both of the last 2 years, so kind of all year, people are like, oh, Jokic is gonna just lose in the first round again, and I'm like, is he though? I think he's either actually going to be really good, and then they were.
Yeah, and then you've had people like Michael Porter Jr. like really develop and step up and become, like, I think he matured a lot and realized he needed to stop acting like he was acting, and
he also just was hurt in 2022, like he didn't play.
That's true. Yeah, he's been riddled with the back injuries and stuff.
You know what was a confidence boost last year? I went back and I rewatched some of the Golden State series, and I was like, wow, this Nuggets team pressing compared, like, because people thought they saw in that series like Jokic got super stretched out and Curry and just killed him on like super stretched out pick and roll. And I went and watched that, and the team was just like unrecognizable on defense because like it was bad. How we got KCP.
They've figured it out. Man, KCP is a great, like, people don't know how good KCP is overall. Like, he's one of the best 3-and-D guys in the league, and he can get buckets if you need him to.
He's like, he's not quite an all defense defender, but like he's close enough that like if a couple people get injured, he could make an all defense team, and then he's like, and then he'll just make like 45% of his catch and shoot threes.
Yeah,
he cannot make a layup in transition though. It's hilarious.
That is one of those weird things. I've seen so many clips of him like on, like Shaqtin' a Fool or whatever, just completely botching like wide open layups.
Yeah, if you're like, hey, do you want a KCP layup or do you want a KCP like foul line jumper? I'm like, give me that foul line jumper.
Give me the foul line jumper. Aaron Gordon too.
Yeah.
I think he's benefited a lot from not being the guy.
Yeah.
He's able to, because he doesn't have the best defender on him, and it's been able to showcase his athleticism, probably having like the third best defender on him most nights because of Murray and Jokic.
And I mean, he kind of, one of the things about it's like most of their points in the paint are off ball. So it's like you got to chase him around. He just basically stands in the dunker spot. And if you put anyone that is not big enough, then it's just a lob. And it's just like, all right. And if he gets the ball below the hoop, he's so strong that usually he just goes to the line. He's not a great free throw shooter, but he's good enough that like Hacken Aaron Gordon him is not viable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
did see that
Pistons
the
won. Yeah.
Pistons
They
finally.
almost beat the Celtics, which would have been hilarious. Sorry, fantasy
They
thinker.
blew that
Yeah.
game big time.
I mean, it kind of just like returned to the median. Like you'd expect them to lose by 30. So then when they're up by 20 and then they lose a 20-point lead, it's like, well, that's kind of expected.
Yeah.
But it would have been hilarious if the Celtics lost at home to the Pistons. But
they
alas,
almost did too.
so
Took them to OT. Well,
so you guys have Alex Caruso, so that's something.
Yeah, Alex Caruso is. I hope the Bulls don't deal him because they seem to have finally started to figure out how to win some games the last 15 games or so. And it's been without Zach LaVine, who is the guy's jersey that I'm wearing right now. So I don't know if he's the problem or if they just needed, the beginning of the year to figure some things out. But they're starting to look like the team I was hoping that they would look like. I'm not delusional enough to think that they're actually any kind of like championship contending team, but it was disappointing to see the hype after they first built this team and then just disappointment of, just not winning when it mattered. But they seem to be figuring some things out finally. And Caruso's a big part of that. He's been kind of injured off and on this year too. So
yeah.
I don't know if the Bulls are going to blow it up. I don't think that they should completely blow it up. I think they might need to just make a couple shifts. I don't think anybody wants LaVine. Since he signed that Supermax, he's not a good enough all-around player that a team is going to want to pay to be like, because if he goes anywhere he wants to go to win, he's going to be like the third option.
And I don't get, so the Bulls, they're trying to trade LaVine to win now. So it's like, okay, so you just want to trade LaVine for people who are better than LaVine? Like, who's going to do that? Like,
yeah. I don't think anybody, I think if LaVine goes anywhere, it's going to be to a team he doesn't want to go to, like a team that is not contending to win a championship. So the market's not hot for him, allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, he's just not good enough to be like, this is a super team, or to be like the best player on, or even like, he could probably be the second best player on a contending team if that team's best player is really, really good.
The issue is he'd be like the second best scorer, but he is not good enough all around to be that. Like, he's not a great defender, and his basketball IQ, I've realized over the years, is not very high. He makes a lot of bad decisions. So
they just need to combine into one person the skills of Alex Caruso and Zach LaVine.
Yes.
And then
Alex Caruso is the Selden Vestrid of that team. Pretty good role, but nobody cares. The good teams care. The good teams are waiting.
Oh yeah, like if I'm like
available.
If the Nuggets got Alex Caruso, I'm just like, we're celebrating the championship. We're doing this. Like, I think he's the best guard defender in the league.
Yeah, I agree.
Which, this is coming from most of the time people who like are Bulls fans are going to think that, but I'm coming like, I have no reason to be like, yeah, I think he's a better guard defender than Marcus Smart or Drew Holiday, but I just like,
I don't think the Lakers ever should have let him go.
Oh yeah, they let KCP go as well. Thanks, Lakers.
Yes, they did.
I like to joke that 2020, AD, LeBron, KCP beats Jokic and Murray in 5. 2023, Jokic, Murray, and KCP beats AD and LeBron in 4. So who's the real impact player here?
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, it is New Year's, and we are still in the pregame.
Yeah,
so
that might be. We should probably start.
I'm going to move us to the first quarter here. And the first quarter, we're going to cover origins of interest. So the first question, again, will be book related. So what made you fall in love with reading? You can go back to little Jake. You can go back to if you refound reading at a later point in your life. Just what brought you to just your love of reading that you have now?
So the origin story is that my mom was specifically like, I would like my kids to be readers. And her strategy is she would be reading books to her kid, as one does, and deliberately stop at cliffhangers. be like, and then like at first she'd read normally. Then she's like, I think he's old enough that he could read. And then eventually young Jake was like, I'll just read and continue. Like, I need to know what happens. So mission successful. Good job, Mom. And then I've read pretty much most of my life. There was a long period in high school where I just kind of reread the same things over, and I didn't read that new stuff. I kind of just didn't have a good way to like find books that I was reasonably confident I would like. Like when I was like, what do I do? I just go into a bookstore and like grab books randomly. So that's something that BookTube and like all the Discords, now I do have that. Now it's the other problem. I have way too many books. So then I know in grade 9 I read The Final Empire, and I was like, ooh, really like that. And then I read a couple more like in that vein of like secondary world epic adult fantasy. And I reread those over and over again. And then in 2019, I think Daniel Green gets some of the credit. I watched his videos and I'm like, yeah, this guy likes a lot of the same books as me. I think I watched his fantasy series tier list. And most of the series that I liked, he also had quite high. So I was like, well, let's just take all his series in S tier and just read those. And yeah, some of those were very good. Some of them were The Witcher. Apologies to any fans of The Witcher novels. And then that kind of kickstarted things, and I reread a bunch of new stuff.
So you found your niche and you started to find, because BookTube has been like that for me too. It's kind of helped me to curate my list, and part of me misses the just wandering into a bookstore or picking something up because the cover looked cool or sounded cool on the, the summary on the back. But I mean, BookTube has really just made it so that I hardly ever strike out. And even if books don't work for me anymore, they're not like a poorly written book. It just doesn't work for me. So like I hardly ever feel like I wasted time reading a book now that I have found BookTube.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at finding books I'll like, even more for like Discord and just knowing and like being able to talk to people who like I know our tastes are pretty similar, and based on like why they're recommending it. If anything, most of the books I haven't liked for like the last 2 years is because I've got a university book club that sometimes picks some books that are a bit of an adventure. But the ones I pick for myself, like, by the way, the series that where I originally went, okay, Mom, I'll just read and find out what happened, was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, if I remember correctly.
That's amazing.
That was a good book where I forget where it was, where I was just like, I'll just continue. But
this isn't a very unique, but it's okay, because Harry Potter was a large part of my reading journey as well, and it was the first series where I remember like waiting for the next book to come out and pre-ordering it and being excited for the release date. And I think that was, we're close to the same age, fairly close to the same age, so you probably remember that hype as well. And in this digital age, it doesn't feel the same anymore as that. That was the last.
Yeah. Also, nothing's been as big as Harry Potter since then.
That's true. That's very true.
Like, I think someone was like, "Oh, Winds of Winter would be huge," and I compared the numbers of like Harry Potter to Rhythm of War, and I believe Deathly Hallows sold like 12 times more in the first hour than Rhythm of War did in the first 2 weeks. Like an absurd difference. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, Deathly Hallows is like, if you took all the new releases that like we read in our circle and compared them combined to Deathly Hallows in its release year, like it wouldn't be close. It legitimately might have outsold the fantasy genre in the year it came out.
That's crazy.
Like it was ridiculous. Like nothing is even close. It's like, Sanderson Stormlight 5 times 20. More than that. So yeah, maybe if something, Fourth Wing is taken off to a pretty wild.
It has. I've had a couple of people that don't participate in like consuming BookTube at all, but know that I have a channel, ask me about that book. So that means that it's gained a lot of popularity just in general.
Yeah, if you just look on Goodreads, let's check. Last time I checked this, it was already wild, and probably more so now. So Fourth Wing has 967,000 ratings on Goodreads. Do you want to guess how many The Way of Kings has?
No, it's nowhere close, would be my guess.
Yeah, Goodreads just became unavailable. It's like 200 and something thousand.
Wow.
Um,
That's insane.
yeah, like it's already like tripled or quadrupled The Way of Kings, which
Wow.
has been out for a while.
Have you read Fourth Wing? I have not read.
I have not. I have heard from so Kyle from Read by Kyle actually read it before it blew up, but just yeah, this was actually pretty good, whatever, 4 stars, and then it blew up. So I have heard that it's actually pretty decent.
Pretty decent. Okay.
But no, I haven't read it. It just seems like not a priority. There are things I'd rather read.
Way to put it. I might get to it at some point, but it's not a priority for me.
I mean, you've got 11th Cycle facing forward in the back there, so
obviously. I do. I've not read that. Okay. I've heard a lot of mixed opinions on this book. Some people love it. It's in their top 5, 10 of the year. Some people did not enjoy it. Don't understand the hype. So I'm going to have to get to that at some point. Keon Ardelin, the author, sent that to me. I won it in a giveaway on his Twitter. So I will. It's big, man. It's really long. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to slate that in. And it's tough between Robin Hobb books and Steven Erikson books to slate anything in that's that big. So I will get to it at some point, though.
I have a bone to pick with Book Talk, which, I mean, I have many, but my biggest is that apparently at some point, the Rainwild Chronicles was a thing on Book Talk, and it had people asking if they could skip the first 3 trilogies to start with Rainwilds.
Oof.
Anyway,
no,
just please, yeah.
Do not do that.
Yeah, don't do that. It's a bad idea. Everyone here knows that. But
yeah, that's true. Everyone here does know that.
So actually, you asked if I was on Twitter. If you end up randomly finding me, my Twitter is Jake. Don't skip live ship Bishop. That's Twitter.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I can't believe you could have something that long.
I barely managed
on Twitter. Yeah, Book Talk. I mean, I don't want to. If it gets people to read books of any kind, even if it's contemporary, not my style of books that I enjoy to read, that's fine. I don't particularly just enjoy the short form content around books. I do enjoy short form content. I think it can be used to be comedic, informative at, a very general level about some things, but I don't prefer to consume my book content that way. It's just, I like to watch people's long reviews or discussions about books. It's just why I gravitated towards the YouTube side of books, and I'm very glad that I did.
Yeah, I think it's good that Fourth Wing is getting people reading. Like, if there's a wave of people in 15 years who are like, yeah, I started reading with Fourth Wing. Fantastic. Wonderful. I agree about the short. I remember I believe I was like, what's going on with Book Talk? And I saw there was just like a review of Wheel of Time. I was like, let's see what a Book Talk review looks like. And the review of Wheel of Time was basically just like, oh, like, it's epic, it's big, it's got a lot of characters. And it's like,
yeah.
So the point of a review is to help people decide if they'll like it or not. You've just told me this 14-page fantasy epic has a lot of characters and is epic. I actually could have figured that out without reading it, believe it or not.
Yeah. But, again, I don't want to talk negatively about it, because if it's getting anybody to read any books, then maybe it will help that person find their little niche of reading that continues their reading journey. And that's really, really honestly what this is about, is to get people to fall in love with reading or re-fall in love with reading and just continue to try to find what makes them tick. And so let's move on to the second part of the first quarter, where I ask you, what made you fall in love with basketball? I think you started to kind of touch on this. So you've not been a fan for a very long time. This is a recent development.
And then I jumped into the rabbit hole, and we've gone deep into that rabbit hole. Yeah. So I actually just find it, I usually enjoy, as you can see from having a YouTube channel, like analyzing and thinking about whatever form of entertainment as much as the actual entertainment. And I find it the most interesting sport to analyze, I think, of like the team sports for a few reasons.
Okay.
One, the nature of there being a lot of possessions. I have an econ degree, and I actually find a lot of the concepts of like how to make your team play basketball well to be really unique compared to other sports just due to the nature of the game. Compared to like hockey, which I played my entire life, and I'd way rather like play hockey than play basketball. Sorry, basketball. Like hockey, it's kind of all has to be very X's and O's. Like there's no like this is this percentage, like this is a better shot than this shot. Like take whatever shot you can get. Oh, my favorite team is the Nuggets, which turned out quite fortunate because they won the championship like within a year and a half of me starting watching basketball. So that worked out quite well. Now people will think I hopped on the bandwagon, but I did slightly early. I guess I hopped on the Jokic bandwagon after he was already really good. Whatever. So yeah, I just find it very interesting, interesting to watch that way. Yeah, and it's just fun. Like, you know, the dunks are cool. Although I'm less, I'll take flashy passes over dunks as highlights.
You've got a great star on your team.
That's one of the reasons I'm a Nuggets fan. Yeah. It's flashy passes. Give me them. He had that full court like inbound lob earlier this year.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen that. It's like almost on a per game basis, Jokic will do something that makes me laugh because of just how ridiculous it is. Whether it's like a floater, like a stupid three, or ridiculous pass. Like
he still just looks like he shouldn't be as good at basketball as he is, but he is.
He just doesn't. Yeah, like a lot of his things are just like he has the best touch around the rim. Like it's absurd.
Yeah.
Both from like watching it, like he'll take a 10-foot floater and I just know it's going in. Like off balance floater from 8 feet, like that's in. And then the numbers support that. Like for the numbers on floaters last year, Atlanta Hawks fans are convinced Trae Young has a better floater than Jokic, which is adorable. He's got a really good floater. He makes like 50% of them. Now, there's a bunch of things that make his floater more dangerous than Jokic. Like, he's faster. He can get to it easier. And he can disguise that as his lob. Jokic makes 70% of his floaters. You're not making up a 20% difference with any of those things.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Thing is, I think Jokic is flashy. Like, Tim Duncan was not flashy. I just think Jokic is flashy in a very different way than other people.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like, he's not going to poster someone. But he'll, make a fall away one-legged three over Anthony Davis. Like, that was a pretty flashy shot.
Yeah, and it'll be like a rainbow too. Just take forever to get to the hoop.
Yeah, it's he's
so awesome. You're a recent lover of basketball, and already I think I can confidently say that Jake probably knows more about the game of basketball analytically than I do or ever will. And I have been actually talking to Jake about books and basketball in Discord servers for probably 3 years now. It's been a while.
I can't keep track.
We are going to move on here to the second quarter in the spirit of continuing this conversation in case anyone is going to be celebrating in some New Year's festivities. So the second quarter, you kind of briefly touched on this when you were talking about why you like to watch basketball, but this is the state of the game part of the discussion. So again, we will start with books, and this can be, are you happy with what you're reading right now? Are you enjoying what the fantasy genre, the industry traditionally or self-pub is putting out? Are you enjoying what's happening in your favorite genres right now? Are you having fun in this current state of the game? Yeah.
So I think fantasy is in a really, really good spot just because of how wide it is. Like, you can kind of find anything. So I get confused sometimes. I will see people say like, this specific thing for fantasy is like a bad trend and it's ruining fantasy. And I'm like, then don't read those books. Like, nothing is a wide enough trend that you can't avoid it. I'm the most confused for this on Hard Magic. And I'm like, really? You can't find a soft magic book? There's like 6 series that I've read that have hard magic. Like the other 50 are all soft. Like this isn't that hard. I've seen it people saying like prose is getting worse, and I'm like, I mean, maybe there's more books with straightforward prose, but also probably just the books that weren't super well written in 1970 you've never heard of because no one's reading them anymore, and you're reading
Right.
everything now. And like there's also a ton of stuff coming out with that has like really gorgeous writing. Like Erickson is still writing, GGK still writing, Rockio is writing, Ken Liu, like Speaking Bones is gorgeously written. Susanna Clark still writes a book every 2 decades because I think she has a medical condition, but writes gorgeously. Like, so I love that you can kind of find within fantasy almost any type of fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you read a lot of self-pub, but that's been just another addition to the fantasy genre that seems like it doesn't care, because it doesn't have to care about the restrictions of these big traditional publishing companies trying to tell people, hey, that won't work. We've got a lot of self-published authors now saying, guess what? I don't care. I want to write it this way, and I'm going to do it and publish it.
Yeah. Although it's kind of interesting. I feel like there's a lot of self-pub, like more traditional fantasy, which you'd think would be the ones that like the publishers are going for. I kind of feel like the publishers almost overcompensated and tried to move away from the traditional fantasy. And a bunch of people with like the self-published thing were like, no, we still like that a lot of the time, just not
Yeah.
only. I don't read as much self-pub as I'd like to, but I mean, like, I don't have anything against it. I just pick the books that I think I'll like, and whether they end up being self-pub or not, I just don't worry that much about it.
Yeah. That's a good point. And I think, that's part of the reason that I love the fantasy genre as well, because sometimes I do want to switch up kind of just the feel of what I'm reading, but not necessarily the entire genre. And I feel like I have enough of an option to just, I mean, I can try some absolutely just wacky fantasy or traditional or just somewhere in between where it's like a blend of modern and traditional fantasy. And there's a little bit of something for everybody, I think, that enjoys this genre to just explore it and see what it has to offer, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, think of how different, but I don't know if you've read these, so I'm just picking like two super different fantasy series. Like Faithful and the Fallen and Piranesi are both fantasy novels, but they're like they're extremely different. Like they're about as different as novels can be in terms of style, in terms of how many characters, in terms of pacing, in terms of what type of conflict it is. Like, it's hard for me to think of like two books that are drastically more different, but they're both just shelved in like adult fantasy.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've not read Faithful and the Fallen. I have it back here.
Yeah, I can
right
see
there.
it.
But I have not read that yet.
I've got it somewhere. One sec. I think my face is blocking it. There she is. Right at the bottom there.
Nice. Drew says, do you guys know of any self-pub authors who write more in the style of Hobb, Tad Williams, Susanna Clark? Most everything I've tried is more on the modern prose side of that. I'm less of a fan of.
I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't read that much.
Yeah, I also don't read enough self-pub. But the one recommendation that I can make, and I've read the first book, is Philip Chase's book, The Wavy Dan. It felt to me like a beautiful blend of traditional fantasy feel and like kind of tropes and the questing aspect of it and a little bit of a chosen one going on. But Chase also writes in a not modern tone, but more modern than some of the older fantasy, I think, that I've read. So I think that might be a good one for you to explore, Drew.
Because like I guarantee they do. Like someone out there has self-pubbed, like published a book in that style. I don't know if I've read it.
Yeah, I don't think that I have. So I'm not the authority. I have not read enough self-pub to make this recommendation. Tiago Abdallah, I have also not read A Touch of Light, but I know a lot of people love that. You have Philip's books and plan on reading them soon. Awesome. I hope you enjoy them. I genuinely do. I need to read the second and the third book. I own them, but I have not read them yet.
Same. I've only read book 1.
Yeah. Did you enjoy The Way of Dan?
I did. I think some people enjoyed it more. But like I thought it was like solidly good. Funnily enough, the book it most reminded me of was The Eye of the World. Like kind of in a lot of the ways, like descriptive style wise, kind of the vibe of like person kind of running from like their hometown, people chasing them, kind of running into like individual villages on the way, some other point of views with like magic stuff going on, and not Wheel of Time, like Eye of the World specifically is what it reminded me of. Yeah, Shad is actually a better person to ask than us, so I would listen to him for that.
I've never heard of Sarah Chorn.
Me neither.
Chorn. Not sure how to pronounce it.
I don't know how to pronounce things generally.
How's it going, Dan? Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year, everyone.
All right, the second part of the second quarter. Do you enjoy the state of game of basketball right now? Do you think, because we hear the players say it all the time, and at the end of the day, it is true, the NBA is a business providing a product. And are you currently enjoying the product that they are putting on the court? Do you have fun watching games right now?
I do have fun watching games. There's definitely a couple things where I'm kind of like, I am definitely on the team that like to me, like in the playoffs, the way it's officiated is like clearly different. Like you can get away with more physicality, and I would just like them to officiate with like that year round. I think so. Every time I try and watch, other teams that have really good players to also watch them. So I'll watch like a Bucks game or 76ers game, and there's so many free throws. Now, on one hand, the Nuggets are like last in the league in free throws. I would like more free throws, please. But also, there was a Jokic game. It was the one that got televised on Christmas against Golden State, where Jokic had his career high in free throws. And it was miserable. Like, I'm glad they won because he went 18 of 18 on free throws. But I don't want to watch that. Like, yeah, it was boring. Yeah. And it happens less in the playoffs, despite I actually think there's a similar amount of free throws, but with like way more physical defense. Wait, the Bulls beat the Sixers? Was that today or what? Yesterday. Yesterday, yeah.
They beat them the last 2 times.
Oh yeah, they had no Embiid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish that they swallowed the whistle a little bit. Also, like, yeah, the refs are in their feelings with like people joke that like the refs think that like it's about them, and I mean, yeah, it's kind of true. The inconsistency on tech fouls is baffling. Like you'll see, sorry to invoke a player who would be on a team you're not cheering for, but like Jason Tatum has had multiple techs from clapping. I'm bringing up people who I have no agenda for. I have multiple techs for clapping. Meanwhile, Draymond will scream at the ref and not get a tech. And it's just like, can that just be more consistent, please?
The inconsistency is really frustrating at times. It has to be for the players.
It's so frustrating. And also, it's not even that, like, if they just stuck to, like, okay, the regular season whistle where there's a ton of free throws, this is what we're going with. There'll be some regular season games where, like, you can tell it was called more loosely. And you're like, why can I tell this is different? Like, I shouldn't be able to tell this is different. How come I could tell that, like, I'm like, oh, Jokic got a better whistle this game?
Yes.
Like, I'm biased, obviously, but I think Jokic is a horrible whistle. But I don't want Jokic to get more free throws. I want everyone else to get less free throws. That's what I want. So yeah, that's I like the speed. I like the pace and space, like the style. It's way more ball movement heavy. Like reruns of like games from like 2006 look miserable. It's like, oh, let's feed a guy in the post, and then he'll take 3 dribbles and take a fadeaway. And oh, we're gonna go do that on the other end anyways. Final score 87-83. Like that's, I don't know.
I agree. I think a lot of the rule changes and stuff that they've made over the course of the last few years specifically they're obviously targeting offense. They want exciting offensive games. They want they don't want their players to get hurt. So we've seen the fouls where you can't get in a shooter's space when they're landing, stuff like that. But generally speaking, I agree with you. The pace is a lot of fun. It's back and forth. It's teams trying to break out and play
Have you seen
fast
the Pacers play this
deals.
year?
They just beat us, so yes.
Yeah, they're so fun. Like, and the Kings this year and last year,
Yeah.
like the ball is popping.
Yep. At all times. They run the court. They
Yeah.
try to get fast break. They don't want the defense to get set up, and that makes it exciting because then you get the fast break buckets, fast break alley-oops, the dunks, and lots of possessions like you were talking about. There's lots of ways for teams to not be out of it, especially with the 3-point ball the way it is right now.
And like the possessions where like everyone touches the ball and it's moving around, it's so satisfying. And
Yeah.
like the player movement, like off ball movement, is way more of a thing other than like let's just have everyone stand on this side of the court and clear the floor for an ISO.
Yeah.
One thing also that is this charge block thing. Like, it seems to me kind of ridiculous that in order to stand in someone's way, that like, if let's say Giannis is charging at you, that you have to stand perfectly still. And that results in people not actually trying to defend and just standing there and falling over without getting bumped into. And this happened last year. That's how Giannis got hurt in the Heat series. And they're like, get rid of the charge. And I'm like, okay, but then like, how are you ever supposed to stop anyone? I think they actually need to make it easier to get a charge, and then people won't have to pretend to fall over as they're getting charged into. Because like charge block is the most like one thing I think I noticed at the start of the year that I think they've changed is they're more willing to just no call it, which I think one thing they have right now, if someone falls, they feel like they have to blow their whistle on a charge. When ideally, if someone just stands there and falls over without getting bumped, like you should just not blow the whistle and just be like, all right, you're going to fall over. They're going to get a wide open dunk. Have fun.
And they have made some changes like with the flopping call. Like there's defenders getting called for techs for flopping now, which actually I like that. It's still kind of it's arbitrary and it's up to the refs to make that decision.
I find it somewhat confusing who's getting these flopping calls. Like, if you had to guess, two of these, well, you'll guess now because of the frame of the question. Two of these people have a flopping tech. Two of them do not. Joel Embiid, Steph Curry, Jokic, and Dame Lillard. Which two do you think have a flopping tech? It's Jokic and Curry. Now, I'm just going to say the Curry one wasn't a flop. As someone who's not biased either way against the Warriors, I actively dislike the Warriors, but kind of like Steph. The Jokic one, I'm biased. I didn't think it was a flop. I thought he was in the air and Sabonis pushed him, and like it was clearly a foul. And Sabonis is big and he's in the air, and then he fell over after he landed. It could have been a flop. If that's a flop, Embiid should be getting a lot of flopping calls.
Yes,
I think it's not controversial to say. If flopping Embiid flops like
all the time,
a lot, and he has no flopping techs. Yeah, like I don't know. I just think like the flopping tech is good. I wish they actually called it consistently again. It's hard to call consistently, but like famed flopper like Steph Curry compared to Joel Embiid. Like, really?
Right.
This is what we're
doing?
I
agree. And we're kind of getting into something that we'll probably touch on when we hit the third quarter. But some adjustments that we might want to make.
What Drew just said tilts me so much. It really makes me angry how the refs wait to see if the ball goes in the basket or not before blowing the whistle. This is my theory on why Jokic gets a bad whistle. I think this isn't a stat you can measure because you would have to know the end ones were wrong. But I guarantee you, if you look at every player's field goal percentage on shots that should have been an end one, that Jokic's is the highest because he just makes the shot anyway. And then the refs, when they see the shots going in their head, they go, oh, it wasn't a foul because he made it. So then the next time they see the same thing, they don't call it. So this is a random stat I saw the other day because I look at NBA stats way too much. For like 3 years in a row on isolations, if you compare Jokic and Embiid, they have like a percentage of end ones on almost the same. It's like 4.5% of their isolations end with an end one. Jokic this year gets just to the foul line generally on like 8% of his isolations. Embiid's like 20%. So they have the same amount of end ones, but Embiid has almost 2.5 times the fouls generally. And it's because they encourage people to, if you can draw the foul and deliberately miss, like not even try and make it, they can do it. And you get punished for like actually trying to make, which is the opposite. Hey, there was a guy in the 80s and 90s. He got to the foul line a lot. You might have heard of him. His name was Michael Jordan. Have you heard of that guy? And people don't go, oh, Michael Jordan, that flopper, because he got to the foul line because he finished through contact. Now you get to the foul line by deliberately not finishing through contact. It's so backwards.
It is strange. And I don't know how you fix that, but it's frustrating to watch at times because I've seen that as well. I'm like, if a foul is a foul, then just call it.
Yeah, don't wait to see if it goes in.
Yeah, that's my whole thing. And one of the Bulls announcers talks about this a lot because it drives him nuts. So it's been pointed out to me the last couple seasons, and obviously with a player like DeRozan who draws a lot of contact, it's frustrating because he's drawing contact to try to get foul calls and making it and not getting the foul call, and it's still a foul. So
also, just while I'm whinging, I would just like to say that Jamal Murray has gotten to the line statistically on 0% of his isolations this year, which is dead last.
That's crazy.
In the NBA. So, yeah. And by the way, he's got the most isolation plays of people. There's like 3 people who've gotten on 0% of their isolations, and all the others are like average 0.1 isolations per game, and he's like 1.8 isolations per game. And it's because Murray might be the least flopper in the league. Like, I don't think Jokic is a flopper, but sometimes Jokic flops. Like, sometimes it's like, okay, Jokic, you sold that one a little bit. Jamal Murray might be like, if you went from most flopper to least flopper, I think Jamal Murray might be the least flopper in the league. And,
I can agree with that.
And he just doesn't get calls. Like, and he drives quite a bit. I don't know.
No, he drives a lot. He's not just a 3-point shooter by any stretch of that.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've had a great first and second quarter. I think it is time for the halftime show. So the halftime show, I think, personally, is a lot of fun. We will be doing a Mount Rushmore, so a top 4. And we will, of course, start with books. So that means, Jake, what is your Mount Rushmore of authors?
So I love that this is 4, because if this was 3 authors, it'd be really hard. And if this was 5 authors, it'd be really hard. But 4 authors is super easy. It's Robin Hobb, Guy Gavriel Kay, Brandon Sanderson, and Jim Butcher is my Mount Rushmore.
Okay. Wow.
And it's like easily. 2 people who I started reading quite young, and 2 people who are much more recent. Hobb is my favorite author, somewhat comfortably. I think she's the best character writer I've ever read. And like every time I reread one of her books, I'm like, I think it's like there's distinct separation here between 1 and 2. This is my opinion. And then Kay's just good at everything. It's not fair. And then Sanderson has 2 modes. He's got Stormlight mode, where like all 4 are among my favorite books. And then he also randomly wrote The Emperor's Soul in Stormlight mode, is my theory. And then the others, they're like, I just find them all entertaining. I have a theory about, you know how a lot of Sanderson fans are like, I don't care about prose. And people are like, yeah, you probably do care about prose. I have a theory on how this happened. This is my theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right. Step 1. Person reads Sanderson, really, really likes it. Not everyone, but a lot of people really like Sanderson. And not like as a, oh yeah, I like this dude, as a, oh, this is my favorite author. And then people tell them, oh, Sanderson's prose is bad. So pretty easy. They go, oh, I don't know anything about prose. I guess I just don't care about prose. Because if I accept the premise that this dude's prose is bad, but he's my favorite. I just don't care about prose. And then people are like telling them that they do care about prose, which is true. They probably do care about prose. They just Sanderson's prose is good at what it's doing. And I think I find pretty much all of his books uniquely immersive in that I just won't notice how many pages I'm reading. Even the ones where I come away and I'm like, this wasn't very good. Like I thought what's it called? Frugal's Guide for London or
Oh,
England
okay, yeah.
was pretty like fine. But while reading it, I was like very immersed. So anyway, that's my theory. Not just for Sanderson, probably for other authors as well, on how people end up thinking they don't care about prose.
It's an interesting theory. I could buy it too.
Who's your Mount Rushmore?
My Mount Rushmore is, I think, as of right now, Robin Hobb, Stephen King, and this is in no specific order, I don't think. But Robin Hobb, Stephen King, Tolkien is up there, and my fourth is tough. Because I don't know if I've read enough of any other author to definitively want to put them.
Well, the thing is Teddy Roosevelt is the fourth person on Mount Rushmore, so it doesn't need to be a legitimate inclusion. So
I suppose that's true. I'm gonna probably have to go with Steven Erikson, although I've only read 2.5 books by him so far. I'm amazed by what he's able to do as a storyteller. Like,
yeah,
just amazed. And I literally feel like I'm still just scratching the surface. So
he would be, if I had to give 5, he'd be 5 actually would be Ken Liu. He'd be one of the people who'd be up there for me as well. But I like the others slightly more. I just, for whatever reason, like don't picture things well while reading Erikson. Totally like just a personal enjoyment thing. My kind of theory is, I know I have a lot of random theories, that how well you picture someone's prose has like, if you're going to claim there is objective quality, it's hard to say like that this is a good determinant of it because it varies so much. But I think it's a huge determinant of like how much you like someone's books.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be mine. Got Ben here, books with Genghis Khan and Robert.
Yeah, I said London and then immediately corrected myself. Whatever. It's not a noteworthy book and its title doesn't deserve to be remembered correctly.
Shad's Mount Rushmore is Gwyn, Martin, Abercrombie, and Sanderson. So my fourth was probably between Martin and Erikson, and I still need to read one more Song of Ice and Fire book, but for some reason Erikson as a writer just clicks with me more as becoming a potential favorite, although Martin also blows me away. So Liu or Butcher could sneak in. I need to read more Dresden. I've only read the first 3 Dresden books thus far. Abercrombie I also have not read, but that is one of my most anticipated books, The Blade itself, this upcoming year. So I will get to Abercrombie soon. A lot of people love him so much. We have Drew's Rushmore of Hobb, Tad Williams, Gurm, and Pratchett. That's very interesting. That sounds like a great Rushmore. Let's move on to the basketball Mount Rushmore.
Sad about no one had. Everyone else that I had on there was on someone's except K. That's okay. Shad eventually will read a second Kai K book and maybe.
So the basketball Mount Rushmore, again, I kind of leave these up to whatever you want to interpret it as. You can do current players, you can do all time, you can do, I don't even care if you do your Mount Rushmore of Denver Nuggets. So what did you end up falling on? What are you providing here?
So the thing is, all-time best Mount Rushmore players is just boring because like the first 3, it's just who's the fourth person. Now, granted, the fourth person could be like 12 different people who have like a somewhat reasonable case, but it's like, okay, so Michael Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, and someone else. Hey, we got Punk Rock Seal coming in with GGK as number 5. Good.
He's
stuff.
A big GGK fan.
This is the way. You gotta convince Colin to read GGK when I'm not here. I guess I should do that as well. So yeah, like for the best, it's kind of like I don't know who would be actually for all time. Who are you picking up for? I don't know who to pick up for.
Bill Russell.
That's a pretty good pick. It's
He has
pretty good.
11 championships.
Yeah, even aside from 11 championships, I think his individual impact is actually like underrated. So this is, you know what? Screw it. We'll go all time and we'll just talk about number 4. We'll just agree. Do you agree with the first 3? Or are you going to come out with someone other than Kareem, LeBron, or Jordan?
No, I don't. I think that's a very solid top 3. And again, like Kobe's not there for me. He's close. Well, I think not to speak illy of the unfortunate passing of Kobe Bryant. I think that when he passed away, a lot of people blew up how good he actually was. Like,
I think
Kobe's
it's
not in my top 5.
Yeah, he's not in mine either. I think like as I said, for 4 to like 13, there's a lot of wiggle room. So if someone told me Kobe was 4, I'm like, cool. I think it's very hard pressed to make a case for Kobe over Kareem. Like I think that case is pretty dubious.
I agree.
I think it's actually pretty dubious to say he was better offensively or defensively. Like I think, and he has a longevity disadvantage.
Yes.
And he has less accolades. Basically, it's like if you never got to watch a Kobe Bryant interview after the game, would the Kobe fans think he was as good as LeBron? And I think it's pretty clearly like, I just don't think there's a good case for Kobe over LeBron or Kareem. And MJ's just the same player, but better. So.
Yeah. No, and like LeBron was maybe unfairly, I was iffy about where he fell for me for a while, but I'm a Bulls fan and obviously a Jordan fan.
You're gonna go Jordan.
Jordan is my GOAT of all time, obviously. But what LeBron, like, I think that I need to stop. Not that I hate on LeBron, because I don't hate on LeBron. I think like I've realized the last specifically probably 2 or 3 years that I got to grow up essentially for most of my life watching one of the best players to ever play the game of basketball, and the guy that, although he's got the longevity aspect of it, he's put the ball in the basket more than anybody else, and he's still going.
And just like one of the best athletes in human history.
Yes, he's a brilliant basketball mind. Like he is so intelligent on the basketball court, and I hope that he coaches someday, because not everybody comes along and just understands the game of basketball quite like LeBron does. So I agree with you. I think mine would be Michael, LeBron, Kareem, and probably Bill Russell, just for the sheer fact that he was a force and won 11 championships.
Yeah, so I think Bill Russell's normally who I have it for as well. I'm one of the few people who feel like I have no horse in the Jordan LeBron debate. I'm kind of like, every time I try and figure out who I think is better, I come to the conclusion that either of them might have been better, and I have no goddamn clue. Like they're both. I think they're both clearly better than everyone else.
I agree with that.
I think it's hard to make a case for anyone else, really. Like you, I think, can make a case that someone, like if you pick certain criteria, you can like put one of them at 3, but like the other is still 1. So Bill Russell obviously won 11 championships. I believe his individual impact is actually underrated. I think sometimes you'll ask like, who's the best defensive player of all time? And people will say someone other than Bill Russell. And I don't really get it. Like,
I don't either.
I love Hakeem. So I'm about to give a wild statement on how high I am on Bill Russell. Hakeem, I think, is the second best defensive player of all time. In terms of defensive impact, I think Hakeem, it's quite possible he's about as close to Jokic as he is to Bill Russell.
Wow.
I think Bill Russell, one is just he played in an era where he was more able to impact the game defensively. Like there was no 3-point line. So there's the total area on the court where you can get super efficient shots was super small, and one dude could defend that entire area. Compared
Yeah.
to now, the area where you can get super like efficient shots is huge because it's the entire 3-point line. And Bill Russell was the best at defending that ever. I think a lot of people are just like, yeah, but he played on super teams his entire career. I think there's a lot of really compelling evidence that they weren't a super team without Bill Russell. And that
Right.
kind of what happened is a bunch of people made the Hall of Fame for playing with Bill Russell. And then 50 years later, it's like, well, Bill Russell, he only won 11 championships because he played with all these Hall of Famers. It's like, they were only Hall of Famers because they played with Bill Russell.
Yes.
In the games he didn't play, his team had a record of 500. They also, like, if you look at their defense relative to the league, it directly correlates to how many minutes per game Bill Russell played that year. Like some years,
he was that good.
Like some years he'd lower down and play like 37 minutes and the team's defense dipped. And then he ramped back up to 45 and his team was immediately amazing. Before he joined the team, they were like the worst defense in the league. And as soon as he left the team, they were league average instantly again. So I think there's a pretty good case. His defensive impact was like an incredible outlier and comparable to like his defensive impact, I think was comparable to like Steph Curry's offensive impact, if not greater. And I don't think you can say that about any other defensive player. Like
I agree with that. Yep.
So Bill Russell at 4, I like it. Let's go.
The fantasy thinker, we have Jared's Mount Rushmore of Russell, Bird, Jordan, and probably LeBron. That's respectable. I would not have Bird that high, but I can't really begrudge anyone for having Bird that high, and he's a Celtics fan, so that makes complete sense to me.
I think a lot
Jerry's
of people
here.
like you. Oh, hello, Jerry.
Hey, Derry.
Kareem, I think, gets the era tax where he's like, yeah, but who cares about the 70s? And it's like, I mean, he was the best player for a decade, though. Like,
yeah, yes.
And like, this is how many other people were inarguably the best player in the world for more than like 5 years. I think it's legitimate. Like, Bill Russell might have been the best player in the world. Wilt Chamberlain might have been the best player in the world for a while. Then Kareem was the best player in the world. Yes. Then Magic might have been the best player in the world. Larry Bird might have been the best player in the world. Who knows? Then Michael Jordan was the best player in the world. And then Shaq was the best player in the world for like a couple years there.
The most dominant center of all time.
Yeah. And then maybe Kobe was the best player in the world. Maybe Tim Duncan was the best player in the world. You want to throw in a sleeper, Kevin Garnett might have been the best player in the world for a bit. Could have been any of them. And then LeBron James was the best player in the world. And now, like, maybe it's Jokic, maybe it's Giannis, maybe it's like whoever. So I think there's only 3 people who were like the clear, can't really make a case for anyone else best player in the world for more than like 3 years. So I have trouble putting anyone ahead of those 3.
I agree with you. We have Tom here. Tom, hello, Tom Orange. Great channel, by the way. Fantastic channel. MJ, LeBron, Shaq, Kareem. I know nothing about basketball though.
It's a reasonable top 4.
That's a reasonable top 4.
I'm pretty high on Shaq as well. I think his longevity gets knocked because he's got a weird thing where he had like a 2 or 3 year peak that was completely insane. Like,
yes.
If you want to try and claim someone was as good as peak LeBron or peak MJ, you're going to peak Shaq. And then his other years were clearly not as good. But, like, his not as good years were still pretty comparable to, like, other all-time great players.
Yeah.
So I actually think longevity-wise, he's pretty underrated. He gets knocked for the fact that he should have been better because he's, like, one of the most physically gifted players of any sport ever.
Tim Duncan's fantastic. Tim Duncan is probably in my top 10.
So, Ben, a lot of players have been really tall, and only one of them has been Kareem. So,
yeah, why isn't Bol doing it?
Yeah, like all the all-time great players. And I think actually one thing that people like about Kobe and why people are so high on them is he doesn't have some unique trait that seems to be like God-given, where you'd be like, that's why he was so good. Like, Michael Jordan worked incredibly hard. If you take a random like shooting guard in the league, I don't care how much Devin Booker practices, he's not going to jump as high as Michael Jordan. He's not going to have Michael Jordan's first step. pick a random small forward, or like they're not going to be as athletically gifted as LeBron was. Those are things, and yeah, like, and then Kareem had a unique combination of height, coordination, and coordination. Like, all these people had unique aspects about them that were, like, I guess, God-given, if you're going to call it, because with no better way of phrasing it. So it seems weird, like, to knock only Kareem for that. Like,
Yeah.
being able to jump 45 inches into the air was a pretty massive advantage that MJ, and having massive hands was a pretty massive advantage MJ had. Are we going to knock him for that? Like,
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So we had a very interesting Mount Rushmore of authors and basketball players, and a very fun halftime show. Again, I love hearing other people's Mount Rushmores in the comments as well, because they're always entertaining just to see what kind of style other people like in their authors.
We got Drews coming in. Look at Drews. It's beautiful.
Let's see. Linsanity, T-Mac, Prime Yao, and White Chocolate. That's probably the most fun Mount Rushmore ever. Jeremy Linsanity was insane. It was insane.
Wasn't paying attention for it, sadly.
T-Mac on the Magic was.
There's a few players right now who all-time joke are the MVP. So we got Al Horford is, of course, the greatest player of all time. Alex Caruso is one of them. KCP. I need a fourth, clearly not best player in the world, who I could joke is the best player in the world.
Dylan Brooks.
No, we're not doing that. Alperen Şengün. No, he's just
he's good.
He's good.
He's really good.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on. We are going to move on to the third quarter, and the third quarter kind of consists of are we making any adjustments coming out of halftime? So we played the first two quarters. We had our halftime. Back in the locker room, you're chatting with your teammates, your coach. Are you happy with where you're at, or do you want to make some changes in what you are reading? Are you... everything you're reading right now, is it clicking, or are you just enjoying it, or do you want to stay in this vein, or do you want to step out of your comfort zone? Where are you at with the books that you're currently reading?
So I need to get back. I've dropped in consistency lately, and we're trying to return to the past where I read very consistently, and just get back to that. I'm pretty happy with what I'm reading. I reread a lot this year, but then I reread less than I wanted to the year before. So that kind of balances out. And also, I can't stop myself, and that's okay. But yeah, just trying to be more consistent again. I read way less books this year than the previous 2 years, way less pages.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had a difficult time maintaining any kind of consistency this year. I feel like I fell into and out of many phases of like reading voraciously, and then like there'd be like a night or two in a row where I just didn't read anything, which is rare for me. And a lot of nights where I would read like a couple chapters, but then there'd be like a month where I just was flying through books and reading a ton. So the consistency was not there for me as well this year.
Yeah, like,
I read less.
Yeah, I was reading like 100 pages almost every day. And now it's like I read 100 pages on the days where I do really well, and very, very rarely read more than that. And I'd love to claim it's that because I'm reading more carefully and absorbing the text, but I'm just procrastinating in the time when I'm not reading. I don't actually have a good excuse.
So you're enjoying what you're reading.
Yes.
It's more just the actual act of the habit of reading.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that as well. What about the game of basketball? We veered into this a little bit with the second, but if there's anything that you like want to change about the game of basketball right now, to make it more enjoyable for Jake Bishop to watch and consume, do you have a couple things that you'd want to see them, like any solutions, suggestions to put in to the league?
I'd like League Pass to please work in Canada.
That doesn't work at all.
You can't watch. You can watch past games. Like I tried the trial, but the game's live just doesn't work, and it's just like, okay, so
wow,
don't. So sometimes
that's crazy.
I of course only watch games in legally permissible ways, but I tried to pay them. Okay, I tried to, and they wouldn't let me. So yeah, that's what I would like. I would like Vancouver to have a basketball team, and I would like that basketball team to be the Denver Nuggets. Thank you.
That would be cool.
I don't think Denver would be happy with that if they won a championship and then the team moved to Vancouver and then you get like Jokic and everything. And I don't think the players would be happy with that. But I personally would like Vancouver to have a basketball team and for Jokic and Murray and Jamal Murray and KCP and Aaron Gordon. And I don't care about the bench. They can keep the bench.
Do you think
I want to keep.
Do you think they'd have the fan base? Like, do you think they'd be successful? Do you think people would
I don't
support
know.
it?
I mean, obviously, I'm actually here. I'm being a massive hypocrite, which you don't know that because you haven't talked to me about this. But I complain about hockey teams, expansion teams, instantly being really good. I'm very annoyed that Vegas won a cup before the Canucks. And this isn't true anymore. Last year, the Canucks were not good, and the Seattle Kraken were really good. But now the Canucks are good this year. But like, if Seattle wins a cup before the Canucks do, I'm gonna be mad. So I'd like to think Vancouver would be able to support a basketball team. I am okay if that team is bad. I think if you're an expansion team, you have to expect to be bad. And I think like we'd go to watch just like knowing it'd be cool to watch other players, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, presumably it'd be cool to like right now I have to travel a long way if I want to watch a basketball game in person. Like it'd be cool even knowing that the Vancouver whatever we're gonna get their ass kicked to go watch like Giannis kick our ass. Like I've never seen Giannis play in person. I'm sure it looks ridiculous in person, right? Like so that's what I want.
That's
I want
a good
us
point.
to have a team.
That's a good point.
An entirely non-biased choice on what the league should change. What are you? You're like, I think they should clone 1987 Michael Jordan and he should play for the Bulls again.
Yes.
That'd
That
be a
would
great
be
change.
the one change. I mean, obviously. This tends to be the thing that I think, which may be a sign, and the first two episodes came up the most. It's consistency with officiating, man, because I think of it from a fan's perspective, and I also think of it from a player's perspective. Like, I mean, there's so many players that are not quite superstar level, like they're star level players, and even younger players coming into the league just trying to figure out how to score, how to impact the game. They see players like Embiid or Harden or whoever doing things to draw fouls and get to the line or uh, impact the game in that way, and then they do them and they don't get the calls. And so I see this a lot with like specifically Levine, because I think that the league doesn't view him as a superstar, rather just a star. And he drives to the basket and he'll pump fake and shoot and get fouled and not get calls. And I think it makes possessions and it makes players look dumb or look like they wasted a possession because they don't get the call that they see other players getting.
Yeah, like I mean, my favorite player averages 6 free throws per game while scoring a ridiculous amount in the paint and being defended incredibly physically. So like I'm there with you. Even like in between playoff series, it was inconsistent. Like for the Nuggets, Wolves was called like the regular season. Like the Nuggets Wolves was called like super lightly. And then like Nuggets Heat, like the finals, they just barely blew the whistle.
Yep.
Like there shouldn't be that clear of a difference. And Nuggets Heat was more physical. Like there probably were more fouls according to the official like definition.
I agree.
Like they just let Bam and Jokic wrestle with each other almost. Like Bam and Jokic fouled each other a lot, but like they were tic-tac fouls. They were stupid fouls. So like who cares? It wasn't hurting the game or making it unfair. And they just like they called it consistently in that series. Except the play on review in the final game where Aaron Gordon got a foul for hitting Jimmy Butler's foot with his nuts, but that's whatever. I can't believe that got reviewed. Do you remember what the call I'm talking about?
Yep.
If the Nuggets didn't win that game, I would have been extremely angry, but they won, so I don't care. Yeah, like I just want consistency. And presumably consistently, like closer to the playoff whistle. But even if it was consistent in the regular season, like, I'll take it. And among players.
Again, that's people are mentioning the NFL being the same way. I think the NFL is worse personally. As I enjoy basketball, the NBA as a product better. Like I enjoy watching it more, but I really dislike, and I think everybody can kind of get behind this when the referees determine games. And I think the point of the referee is to maintain the integrity of the game so that what the players are doing on the court or the field, whatever you may call it, they determine the game. And there's been a lot of goofy things that I mean, you just was it today or even last night, the LeBron 3 that was a 3 that got called a 2 and they reviewed it and it was obviously a 3 that got called
Have
a 2
you seen the full thing in have you seen the full thing in slow motion? Because there's like the single clip of his toe not touching the line. But like I'm not sure if it was a 3 or 2 or not. Like I think his toe might have touched the line. Like
You think?
yeah, like I've seen like the full video in slow motion because at first, like when he's about to shoot, his toe isn't on the line, but then he rocks forward slightly as he's shooting, and it's like right as the ball is leaving his hands. But that's one of the closest calls. I'm not even that mad at that because that's one of the closest calls I've ever seen. Like in slow motion, I can barely tell.
Well, I think I think people don't think about this too. I mean, even like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the introduction and integration of instant replay into all sports has potentially been a negative impact, although it does help to maintain some of the integrity of the game. That just would have been a lit 3 that tied the game before instant replay. They never would have went back and reviewed it. They wouldn't have messed up the flow of the game. It just would have been what they called it on the court.
I think they called it a 2 on the court, but it
did they call it a 2?
Yeah, and then they went to review it to see if it was a 3. But the thing is, like, people wouldn't have been able to argue about it as much. It would have just been
exactly.
Well, I mean, LeBron still would have been like that was a 3. People probably would have just believed him. Which I mean, it might have been like it was ridiculously close. But yeah, like the instant replays definitely is a factor. And also, like, I don't know if you know, I noticed this like when I watch other people's broadcasts, like the producers for broadcasts will not show replays when like they know it was a call in their favor. There was a hilarious one because it got interrupted like mid replay, and it was like Jokic got to the line, and it was obviously a foul, and the commentators were complaining about it, and the replay started, and it stopped halfway through the replay because the producer was like, "Oh crap, yeah, that's foul," and didn't show the replay, and it's just like if you go watch any team's local broadcast. If you go watch the same game with the 2 broadcasts, you'll think the ref rigged it both times in the opposite direction, which is kind of funny. How about this for the stupidest idea that would be hilarious, though, and because it would make foul baiting less valuable? What if they move back the free throw line? Make free throws harder.
To what?
I don't know. Figure out whatever. Like right now, a free throw, like the average efficiency for free throws in the league, like 2 free throws are like what, an 80% shot on average? Like that's almost better than like a layup, not an open layup, but like a mildly contested layup. What if free throws became on average like a 65% shot? So like a good shot, but like not if you're bad at them. Steph Curry would still probably make like 80% of them. It's never going to happen because it would like, can you imagine like everyone practicing their free throws for the last 20 years and now it's like, wait, what? The free throw's a different distance now?
Yeah.
But like,
that would be crazy. Actually,
it would change.
It would drastically alter the way that specifically tons of players play the game.
Yeah, and it would change. The problem I think it would have is it would make like hack a insert player valid for too many people. Like too many people would free throw percentage would drop below an average half court possession. But then you foul out. Like
that's true.
Whatever, it's never gonna happen. Yeah, so kind of, except there's way more of them. Like
they're
someone earlier this year got 32 free throws in one game. And to be fair, that was Giannis. And to be fair, he got fouled a lot because the Pacers couldn't defend him and were deliberately fouling him. So they were hacky Giannising. But no one's getting 30 penalty shots in a game of soccer.
Um,
Yeah, 32. Exactly. Yeah.
32. Yeah. He did get fouled a lot, like Jake
He
said.
did. That was like people were complaining about that game for Giannis, and I didn't watch it live, but I was like, I watched the highlights, and I was like, yeah, those were fouls. Like,
they're literally just like grabbing him. Just
yeah, I mean, the Pacers were just couldn't defend him, and were just like deliberately fouling him, basically.
Yeah, the foul system is a different
Very
standard than what you're talking about. It's like fouling in the NBA specifically, even compared to like American football, happens way more frequently. Like each player on the court is allotted 6 fouls throughout the duration of the game. And if you acquire 6 fouls, then you have to sit out. Although that doesn't happen very often. I would say on average, there's probably like 6 to 7 fouls per quarter on each team.
Yeah, that'd be like about 24 fouls per game per team. That sounds
Yeah,
about
and
right.
there's 4 quarters. I mean, that's probably fairly average. So it happens frequently. It happens frequently.
And it's also
Sometimes you
like,
don't get free throws. Sometimes a foul just means that the team gets to inbound the ball from out of bounds again.
and for clarity, if you get a certain amount of fouls, you're just out of the game. It's 6.
Yes.
And yeah, and also it's like if you keep doing the fouls that aren't shooting fouls, eventually they start getting free throws from them.
Yeah.
So you can't
I
just
mean, I didn't
yeah,
want to go into too much.
but anyways, that's how that works generally. And it's like it's not like for hockey, usually when people go to the penalty box, they were deliberately fouling someone and got caught. For basketball, like you can try you're usually a lot of people like star players who are mainly there to be offensively. They're trying very hard. It's hard to not foul people a lot of the time. Specific people, it's very hard.
Oh, Tom Orange is a Steelers fan. I saw that. I'm from Pittsburgh, although I am a massive Bulls fan. I am born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I don't live in Pittsburgh now. I live close to Pittsburgh, but it's nice to see a fellow Steelers fan. And to answer the Mike Tomlin question, I am indifferent towards Mike Tomlin. He's a weird coach that has never had a losing season, but the only Super Bowl he's won was with acquired players, and he hasn't been able to do very well since then. So I don't know if it's like a Tomlin thing or a personnel thing. I don't know.
I know nothing about football and have no impact.
Yeah. All right. We do have a fun way to kind of wind down, and in the fourth quarter, we talk about just some general questions. In a world, again, we'll start with books. In a world where there is endless forms of entertainment, we talked about the short form entertainment with TikTok, we've got TV shows, we've got movies, we've got video games, we've got manga, anime, whatever, basically at our fingertips. What keeps you coming back to reading after all this reading you've done and with all the forms of entertainment that we are exposed to or have access to?
Yeah, so reading, a lot of those are like narrative based. Some things for entertainment, like YouTube shorts, aren't always narrative. It's like, that food looks good. Let's look at this person make a steak. Most of those, even I would say the sports, are narrative based. We're trying to find a narrative. And I think books are a uniquely engaging way of enjoying a narrative that is really hard to replace, because for all the others, you cannot to the same degree be in the head of the person you're following. Like, I love the Mass Effect game trilogy, but I don't know Shepard the way I know Fitz. Partially because Shepard does act differently. But even if I don't know Kratos the way I know Fitz, because I'm in Fitz's head, I think it gives a unique perspective on like really seeing the world from someone else's perspective in a way that just no other form of enjoying narrative can. And can be emotionally evocative and stick in my head in a way that other forms of narrative just can't quite manage to the same degree.
Yeah.
I
agree with that. And I think, like, specifically with reading, it's such a deeply personal experience. even people reading the same book. I mean, it all depends on where you're at mentally and what you've been through in your life. Like what parts of books are going to stick out to you, like how, like what characters you're going to, I mean, even just like listening to people's discussions and participating in discussions on books and hearing about what characters people really connected with. I'm like, wow, that's like a character I did not connect with at all. So it's fascinating to me why different people get connected to different stories or different characters. And I don't think you get that with other forms of entertainment where there's a director basically directing how they want the actors to act and how they want the audience to feel about things. You
Yeah,
don't get that with books.
like all the different forms I think have their unique advantages. I just think like books' unique advantages are the ones that are like the most engaging. And like Drew say, like they're the most engaging when you've got a book you like. Like you're not going to be reading a book and oh yeah, I'll scroll on my phone while I read. But like if I watch TV, I'm probably going to scroll for some of the scenes. Like,
Yeah.
I shouldn't, but I'm going to. Like we're just being completely honest. I might scroll for some cutscenes in a video game, but like yeah, it's the movie plays in my head. It's great. Yeah, it's uniquely engaging. I agree. Go books.
That's what yeah. There is a big rereader of a series that we're both big fans of.
Yeah. Gary's like one of the only people I know who rereads more than me. So I reread a lot this year.
I commend it. I wish I could allow myself to reread more. I just want to read so much more stuff that rereading feels like I just shouldn't be doing it, although I know that's not true.
What happened was I was reading one Guy Gavriel K book a month, and then I got to the end of them, and I just kept reading one Guy Gavriel K book a month. Now I've reread like most of them. Which ones do I have left? I need to reread Last Light of the Sun still, All the Seas of the World, Children of Earth and Sky, Fionavar, and Jezebel. Okay. Then
he's got a pretty big library of books. I need to
15. Yeah.
Oh,
good
wow.
size. Where it's like, I mean, he's been writing for 40 years, right? I joke. So Read by Kyle is also a huge Stephen King fan, and he's now reading through Guy Gavriel K, and now could be described as a huge Guy Gavriel K fan. And he's one of the Stephen King fans who it's like The Stand and It and 11/22 are all like some of his favorite books ever. Also, he's given some of them 1 stars. And it's like basically Guy Gavriel K and Stephen King, if you ask Kyle, have written really good books at a similar rate. But King, in between his really good books, writes other books. And K doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, Stephen King just writes. He just writes. And it sounds like to me that I need to really start to prioritize Guy Gavriel K because I have not done that.
Yeah, I might read Sarantine again next year.
What if I had to start with one? What is it?
So, if you open YouTube right now, and if you search where to start Guy Gavriel K, do you know whose video comes up?
Is it yours?
Oh, look, it's mine, and it's 38 minutes long.
I will watch it. I will.
But the short answer is there's a lot of good starting places. I think there are 8 good starting places. If any of those historical periods uniquely interest you, start there. So if any of the following you're like, oh, that sounds cool, you got Renaissance Italy is actually there twice. You've got like the Reconquista, which is like when in Spain in the Middle Ages, when like Spain reconquered it.
Okay.
Yeah, Holy Wars. Then you've got we're sticking to Europe for now to get them out of the way. There's also one that's set in like Providence, France. It's called like the Albanian Crusade. Is that the name? Albanian Crusade. Is that a thing? When was that? Yes. Go memory. I remember words.
Nice.
The Sarantine Mosaic is longer. It's 2 books. Most of the others are standalones. It's set in like 6th century Byzantine Empire. So like the Eastern Roman Empire, which all I learned about in school was like, oh yeah, after Rome fell, these dudes were around for another 1,000 years. Okay, back to England. And then there's and then there's also Tang Dynasty China. So those are your options.
So he covers a lot. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of like the periods of history that like aren't the most famous. Like there isn't like a Julius Caesar era Rome book or something, or like
Okay.
I would like there to be. Can you please write that, G? He wouldn't do it. It's too but okay, please, Crisis of the third century, please. It would be so good.
He's definitely gonna watch this.
For sure. Okay, please.
All of it too. An hour and
Crisis of
35
the third
minutes
century.
in.
Hey, he likes books and he likes. I've seen him tweet about basketball. He likes basketball as well.
Hey, yes.
I think he likes baseball more.
We have a question for you.
I have not read Jack Vance. I let you down, and I apologize.
I think we have another question for you.
And I haven't read The Lonesome Crown. So on Jimmy's Discord today, people had reading New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolution 1 was to be more consistent, and my second was to finally read The Lonesome Crown. I forgot all the characters though, and there's so many. So I feel like I should reread the first 2. And the audio doesn't work for me. I tried rereading them on audio. I don't do that much audio. And I don't like them on audio. And I'm like, if I reread them on audio, I'm going to just like them less. And then I'll be convinced myself I don't like the series. So it's like, do I read it and just try and figure it out when I've forgotten everything? Or do I reread them? But they're pretty long.
I just got this.
Yeah, it's good.
Our Secret Santa that we did for our Discord. This book is big.
Yeah, like, second book is bigger.
How? This is huge.
Ready for this?
Huge. Oh my gosh. What?
Yeah. They're not like there are a lot of words, obviously, but the font isn't like super small. Word count wise, I mean, they're long, obviously, but they're not like Stormlight or Malazan long.
Okay. Brandon Park says creativity available in books is unmatched. Books are more fun to share. Authors are superior writers. Books are typically shorter than video games. All very good points.
Also, yeah, authors are superior writers. Like, why are there so many more plot holes in TV shows? I don't get it. Why can, like, every time I watch a TV show, even the ones I really like, I just have to be like, that doesn't make sense, but I'll just move on. But for books, like, yeah, sometimes, but like most books, I feel like the plot is pretty well thought out. And most TV shows, I feel like there's multiple glaring holes.
So this is a uniquely backwards aspect, I think, of society that readers probably feel more often than people that are not consistent readers. I feel like the reasons that a lot of people that don't read a lot of books quite frequently give for not reading a lot of books quite frequently is because their attention span is not able to withstand reading a 400 or 500 page book. And I think the instant gratification that so many shows go for, while I guess sacrificing the least amount of quality possible while still maintaining a plot, like I'll watch a show and I'll have the same thought as you. I'm like, I wish there was just 4 more episodes of this show to fully explain something rather than completely skipping an aspect of the story that now makes no sense to me. And I can't stop thinking about why this just worked. Like, it felt like a convenience. Just like, we don't have to explain this.
The amount of time
we'll just get to the next action scene
in TV shows happen because the plot needed to happen feels so much higher than books. And that happens sometimes in books. Like sometimes you're like, okay, this happened because the plot needed to happen, but it's so much for TV shows. I wonder if there are short books. I wonder if it's maybe that we said like books require such a greater degree of focus. Like you can kind of zone out and watch TV. You can't really zone out and read a book.
No, not really. I mean, with audiobooks, I don't know if you're an audiobook listener. Sometimes I just don't have the
try.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Sometimes I can't though. But I think because I don't watch a whole lot of TV. I really genuinely don't anymore. The last 3 or 4 years I've just been most of the time I would spend. I do watch some, mainly it's sports. Like I don't watch a lot of shows anymore.
I watch adaptations and like a couple shows that I've been watching for a long time.
Right. But I think I'm used to just getting the full story. I mean, I'm cool with, especially as a Robin Hobb fan. I mean, like I'm cool just hanging out for a while. I don't need things to be bang, 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 action scene, action scene, action scene, climactic event. Like, I like the build up. I like to see how an author is going to lay all this stuff out. And I oftentimes don't get that with TV shows. So um, there are a lot of shows you can
Yeah,
zone out.
here's proof
Yeah.
books are better. Are you ready? So, the Lord of the Rings movies are 3 of my 4 favorite movies of all time. I really love the Lord of the Rings book. It's not in my top 4 favorite books of all time. And yet, the book is better. So, do the math.
Yep. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince movie literally gives a single sentence to explain the title. The books, it has a major theme. I agree with that.
Also, by the way, this is why it tilts me when writers try and before when Wheel of Time was coming out, I was like, yeah, they're gonna have to adapt it. Things have changed. I'm a radical on just don't change things when you adapt fantasy books or sci-fi books. Like I get sometimes you have to change things when you absolutely have to. Other than that, just do it 1-to-1. Like you get the best result in that. And they're not as good writers on average. Like
Yes.
if you're trying to adapt, like in the future, if someone was trying to adapt Malazan, you're not as good of a writer as Erikson. Just do what Erikson did, okay?
Probably not even close.
Yeah, like he's a lot better than you at this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched the first 3 episodes of Percy Jackson.
No,
they just
not
adapt
yet.
the books. Like it's just the Lightning Thief. And
That
it's
sounds
good.
great.
It's
Yeah,
good.
that sounds great.
Now, it's not like peak cinema because the Lightning Thief isn't peak literature, but it's like it's as good as the Lightning Thief book.
So you're saying it's exactly what a book fan of that series would want if they got an adaptation.
Yeah. And also
that sounds amazing.
I read 3 books after I'd watched the movie. And all of them, as I was reading it, I was like, oh, the movie just adapted this. And they're all really good movies. The Martian is it's almost just the Martian book. They changed like a couple things. He doesn't actually fly like Iron Man. He just jokes that he could. There's like a thing with a dust storm. There you go. The dialogue, everything else is just the same. It's the Martian. The Princess Bride book it has the frame narrative is slightly different. Some of the dialogue is in different orders, but it's the Princess Bride. They just were like, hey, we have this story. Let's make it a story, the same story in this format. And No Country for Old Men, which the movie No Country for Old Men is just, they weren't like, hey, I'm a better writer than Cormac McCarthy. Let's change these things. And that was good writers. They were like, oh, I should just do what McCarthy did. This clearly works.
I have never read No Country for Old Men, but it has been for a while one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, you'll like the book. You know why? It's the same story. And it's good.
I need to read that one.
And then anyway, so I am on team and like even ones where you have to change more, because like No Country for Old Men was kind of written as a screenplay. I think Dune 1, they changed things when they had to change things. They didn't change things compared to like Wheel of Time. They were asking themselves, can I change this? Dune, they were asking themselves, do I have to change this?
Okay. Very, very big difference.
Yes. The writers of Wheel of Time, Rafe thinks he's a better writer than Robert Jordan. Rafe is not a better writer than Robert Jordan. There was one that, I don't know if you read Wheel of Time.
I've not.
Okay. Have you watched the show?
I watched some of it, but fell off. Like 4 episodes.
Like, I get the things you have to change because of budget. You're going to have to focus on Moraine more. It's your big money actress. Fine. There's a scene in season 2 that's a flashback to the past. That's also a scene in New Spring. The scene is the same, but they rewrote the dialogue. And the dialogue, it's just a worse version of the same scene. That was just, they looked at it and they're like, I think I'm better at this than Robert Jordan. And it's just the less good version. And I'm just like, it would have been cool. Like, this would have been better if it's just clunky now.
The most irritating thing about this is that we're saying this as book readers, and people making these shows 9 times out of 10 in today's day and age are not making it for the book readers.
But so the thing is, when they do it like this, they do better commercially. Like season 1 of Game of Thrones did pretty well. Like the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones. And then they stopped. Well, they ran out of books to follow. But even for season 5, they had plenty to adapt, and they just stopped following it.
Yeah.
Like things commercially, like faithful adaptations seem to have done quite well historically. Dune did pretty good. Lord of the Rings, which actually isn't super it's one of like the least faithful adaptations that I still think is really good. Percy Jackson's probably going to do better, pretty well commercially. Harry Potter movie 1 and 2 did pretty damn well commercially. Harry Potter movie 1 like is a very close adaptation to the Philosopher's
Stone. It is.
Like it's the arrogance. They all think that like, oh, but if I do it this way, it won't do well. But everyone who like the Martian movie did super well. The dude who did it was clearly just like, let's make The Martian. I've got this book. Let's make it a movie. It did great. Like the people who don't read the book and only watch the movie can tell when it's good or not. And there are rare exceptions. Like I have not read The Shining or watched The Shining. I should probably do both of those things. Apparently it's very good and very different. That's the one counter example I get from Change Things. I'm like, okay, do you have a second example? And it's like,
not
okay,
often.
So just The Shining. So this has worked once out of how many not faithful adaptations are there that are bad? 6,000? You're one for 6,000.
Stephen King.
Yeah, you're 1 for 6,000. That's your batting average. Can you name a really faithful adaptation that's bad? Like a single one?
Definitely not off the top of my head, and probably not.
Yeah, so like Kyle came up with one, and it's like, okay, apparently there's 2. All right, Jaws movie's better than the book. So they're 2 for 6,000. Like doing it faithfully works almost all the time. That's my rant.
I agree.
That was a long rant.
I mean, especially, well, I do premise this by saying we may veer out of bounds. And when Jake agreed to do the show, I knew for a fact that we would be veering because we both like to talk about a lot of stuff. And this has been a great conversation. I think the people have enjoyed it. I didn't even know Jaws was a book for the longest time.
Oh, actually, my other favorite movie is the 3rd adaptation that's better than the book, which is The Shawshank Redemption. I
have watched The Shawshank Redemption. I've not read the short story yet.
It's so good. It's my favorite movie.
What about Green Mile?
Kyle is trying to get me to read it. I haven't watched it.
I haven't read it, but I've watched it again.
Yeah. But Shawshank is my favorite movie. My 4 favorite movies are Shawshank and then the 3 Lord of the Rings movies.
Nice.
But I think I like Shawshank more than the Lord of the Rings movies. Like
I'm trying to convince my wife to agree to find some like group of friends that live in the area that would be down to do that like extended edition like marathon all day long where we like actually cook food inspired by Lord of the Rings and have like breakfast and then second breakfast and then 11Z's and then do lunch and then do like I think it would be so much fun to just like all day long.
Wait. So the idea is food and the Lord of the Rings movies.
All day.
That's a win.
Literally like wake up all day long.
Yeah.
And just watch things about Lord of the Rings and eat things inspired by Lord of the Rings.
It's not a rocket science idea and yet it's genius.
I've seen people do it.
It cannot go wrong. That's a good day.
All right, we have veered quite a bit, and I need to go help my wife cook steaks. We're having steaks tonight.
Nice. How are you going to prepare the steaks?
Here we go, veering again, but this is a great veer. For the last 2 years now, we have been actually doing them in either a cast iron skillet or just a skillet, and we baste them with butter and rosemary and garlic. I don't even own a grill. We tried cooking fillets one time in the air fryer. It went fairly well, but I still probably wouldn't prefer to do it. I just wanted to see what would happen.
Yeah, cast iron is the way.
We baste, and sometimes we'll broil just a bit to finish. So it's going very well. It's not the healthiest probably way to eat them because there's a lot of butter involved, but It's
I mean,
pretty.
it's really like the butter. A lot of the butter doesn't actually enter the steak. It's
That's
really
true.
just like a bit of a waste of butter. Like, but also then you just make a sauce out of the butter, and then it's again unhealthy because you're eating the butter. But you know
Yeah.
what? Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah, I'll usually like when I do that, then I'll just take the sauce and whatever the side is I'm having with the steak, I'll just pour that on that side from the pan.
Oftentimes that's rice for us, and we do the exact same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been known to make some good steaks. I love my cast iron pan. I cook almost everything in that cast iron pan.
Oh, it's so great.
The butter helps caramelize the steak. All right. It's there's actually there's been a lot of basting steak things. That's why you're traditionally supposed to do it. It doesn't actually do that. It's been tested. It does make it taste better. It makes it taste like garlicky. Although I've actually like from the tests I've seen, like people have two steaks prepared, one that's been basted with butter, one that isn't. They can't tell the difference. Adding the thyme or rosemary is when it like what makes the bigger difference than the garlic. But it definitely makes it taste better. The caramelization, I mean, you should have a layer of oil in the pan. You can get the crust with or without the butter approximately equally well. And also it makes the butter like you remove a steak from cooking and then let it rest.
Right.
It will help it cook more after the resting, like while resting.
Okay.
Compared to if you don't do that.
It's been a bit of a science because my wife, when I met her, was a well done steak person, and I have worked her down to medium well. That's about the lowest she'll go. But if I get a good cut of meat, I'll like to cook it medium rare.
Yeah, I mean,
and so it's been a difficult science trying to figure out because I use the same pan because I don't want to continue to clean pans all the time. Trying to figure out like when to flip and set my steak aside to rest so I can get it to medium rare and then keep hers going. So we've through some trial and error over the years have figured out some pretty good timing.
The butter makes it taste better. I'm not saying don't do it. It's supposed to do like 6 things. It actually only does 2. I think we should just stop even asking people how they like their steak. We don't ask people how, like every other protein, there's like, no one asks, how do you want your shrimp? You just cook it properly.
That's true.
So I went on a golf trip in 2021 with a bunch of people from Golf Town. And one of the days I made steaks for everyone because I'm a good friend. And I didn't ask them. I just told them you're getting medium rare. And I was like, you can either eat it medium rare or you can not eat it. This is correct deal. Like, there's just not an advantage to medium. Like, it's just less juicy.
Medium's acceptable.
It's acceptable because it's just
if I'm getting a good cut of meat, it's medium rare. Like,
yeah.
I mean, if I'm getting steak at like a Haas's or something, I don't even know if you have Haas's. Like, I don't know if I'd get a steak there medium rare, but like if I'm going to like a steakhouse or buying a cut of meat, it's medium rare.
Yeah, I mean, anyways, some won't like salmon. Salmon you can eat raw safely, and like when you go to a restaurant,
sushi grade, yes,
yeah. I mean, and salmon, like almost most versions, like you can eat salmon rare, like you can just sear the outside. It's safe to eat. But if you go to a restaurant and order a salmon dish, they're not going to ask you how do you want it. They'll just cook it to medium because that's just where like they're not going to cook your salmon well done because that's just a dumb way of cooking it. If I'm cooking a bad steak and someone wants it well done, whatever. If I'm cooking like a ribeye and someone asks for it well done, I'll just not do it. I'm just like, I'm cooking it. I'll cook a ribeye medium because it's pretty fatty. Like it's reasonable to want medium. If it's a tenderloin, no, stop it.
Yeah, you could just also politely ask them to leave your home.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. And then if it's like a New York strip, yeah, it should be medium rare.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, the last leg
Drew just
of the fourth quarter is going to be, and this is your recent fan, so this might not be applicable to you, but we talked about what keeps you coming back to reading. We have a very similar feeling when it comes to that, but what keeps you coming back to basketball? Obviously, you've got excitement.
My team is really good, and
your team's really good.
Yeah. So that, yeah. I
But
don't know
still,
what's gonna happen.
there's a
Like
lot of
one day, Jokic is gonna retire, and we will see if my basketball fandom survives that, or if I start watching like 5 games a season. I'm
yeah.
so spoiled. Like even I'm so spoiled. Like the non-Jokic minutes, they're painful. Like they just jack up like contested threes, and I'm just
You're
like,
talking to a Bulls fan, man.
yeah,
I'm excited to be 15 and 19 right now.
yeah. You guys have you seen? Are you aware of the Vucevic statistical like? It's statistically irregular how consistent his stats are. Are you aware of this?
No, but is it like that he gets 16
Uh,
points and 10 rebounds the most consistently out of any other player in the
it's that
league?
his stats for the last few years are the same.
Oh,
Like
that's pretty crazy, actually.
I'm just gonna read this out. Ready for this? It's not this year. It was for the first few games of this year, but it's that in 2021-22, he averaged 17.6 points, and 11.0 rebounds and 3.2 assists. In 2023, he averaged 17.6 points, 11.0 rebounds, and 3.2 assists. And those rebounds both years were 1.9 offensive and 9.1 defensive. He averaged literally the same line both years.
That's incredible.
Um,
And I was pretty spot on because I said 16 and 10. It's 17 and 11.
It's
That's what he gives you
17.6 and
every
11.
night.
Yeah, and 3 assists. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
This year he's
crazy.
down a little. He's 16.7 and 10. This year he's 16 and a half and 10. So
Wow.
yeah, he's an outlier. The 2014 there's a YouTube video called The Beautiful Game Spurs, and it's just a montage of the 2014 Spurs, and it's incredibly satisfying.
They were so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
All right, well, hey, it's for me 10:56 p.m. I can smell my wife has already started cooking. And this is going to be our first New Year's just in our own home without going out and
Congrats.
doing anything.
I would just like to say to Derry that I've averaged 0, 0, and 0 every year of my career. I am equally consistent to Vucevic.
You are. I want to just take a second here to thank everybody in the chat. I didn't know if anyone was going to show up. It's New Year's Eve, and it's like pretty close to when the ball drops for me, at least.
It's New Year's Day
And I
for
definitely want to thank. Yes, it's already New Year's for Derry. I want to thank Jake for being willing to come on tonight. And I had so much fun, man. I knew we were gonna have fun talking to one another.
Yeah, books and basketball. That's kind of on brand for me. I'd just like to ask Derry, how's the future?
She always knows every year.
Yeah, yeah. How's 2024? Is it just the same as 2023 again?
Hi, Usman. So yes, again, thank you guys all for being here tonight and making the chat and the experience of the discussion just that much more fun. And Jake, thank you again. I hope you guys all have a very, very happy New Year, and I will be seeing you in my next video.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Colin, and thank you, chat, as always, for being the other guest who makes this as fun as it is.
Where can the people find you? Although everyone here probably knows where you are.
Basically just my YouTube channel. I technically have a Twitter, but I don't link it anywhere because I don't tweet things. Except actually, I just told Colin before this that I found the best thread ever, which is a combination of Moneyball and Lord of the Rings that I'll maybe put in the comments of this video because it's glorious. But just my YouTube channel. It's Jake Bishop. Probably Colin will link it in the description as long as I don't piss him off like in the next 10 minutes or something.
No, you won't.
Okay.
I will link it. Go and check out Jake's channel if you haven't for some reason and subscribe to him. And again, Happy New Year's, guys. I hope you have a wonderful entry into 2024. And I'll see you soon.
Don't drink too much, people. Or do. I'm not going to judge you. No one told me I was